I'm Edan Leshnick, head pastry chef here at Bread's Bakery in New York City, and this is every tool we use to make our bread and pastries. This is a sheeter. We use this to sheet out our dough, and sheeting out meaning to thin it out. By the time it takes a human to actually roll the dough out, this can do in a fraction of that time. I want a certain thickness of our croissants to showcase the layers. So when you are eating a croissant, it actually makes a huge difference how thick the dough was. The layers are gonna feel different, meaning that the crispiness of the layers will feel different as well. Other thing that this machine has is this rolling pin. What we use this for is actually to catch the dough as it comes towards us and be able to roll it up and then move it onto the tables. This is our custom-made 10-foot long babka table. Babka is one of our most popular items. Over the course of 24 hours, we work 24/7, and we literally make thousands of babkas on this table every single day. We're able to cut our babka according to the length just because we mark these like little dots over here that tell us exactly the length of every single individual babka that we're gonna make. Our babka is a laminated layered dough that's smeared with different fillings. In our case, our chocolate babka is made with Nutella and chocolate chips. It's rolled into a roulade, cut in half, and then braided individually into our molds. This is our bicycle cutter. We actually use this for marking. This allows us to make some of our arugula or our barecas. I can turn this little knob here and then adjust the width of how I want the dough to be. And then I can mark these triangles on the entire dough. Afterwards, I'll go over and follow with a knife and cut according to these lines. If we were to try to cut this by hand, we'd have to mark each and every line like that. But instead, when I use this bicycle cutter, I can actually just drag it right across the dough and get an even cut, and usually it's very, very perfect. So this is a Tourné knife. This is a knife that is made in Switzerland. When I use this, I can get very clear and very clean cuts of our viennoiserie, so our croissants. Because if you look at the shape of it, it has a curvature like that, and it meets to a very fine point. Because it has that curvature and very little of the knife actually touches the dough, it doesn't damage the layers in any bit. You never wanna have to cut this way. You always wanna lift up your knife and only let that point touch the dough as best as possible, because that's gonna actually preserve the layers even more. This is an offset spatula, and the reason is because it's offset, and this allows us a lot of control when we're spreading any types of fillings, but mostly for our babka production. If this was completely flat, I wouldn't be able to actually lift up my hand, and my hand would get completely smeared with Nutella. So these actually make the quality better, because then we can go a little bit quicker, maintain the dough's temperature, which is always the most important, and still get a really quality and even spread. This is our giant immersion blender. It immerses itself into whatever it is that we're mixing. We deal with very big quantities of batters or of liquids, and whenever we do that, we actually need something that has a very long neck, as you can see, that can basically go right into whatever it is that we're mixing all the way up until here. And then continue to work properly. And it has this capacity of creating emulsions. Emulsions trying to combine fat and water. Normally fat and water molecules, they don't combine. An immersion blender is something that actually gives us that ability to cut these molecules on a very small level and be able, with the help of some sort of emulsifier, to combine those two enemies. A lot of home versions of immersion blenders are closed off here because it traps a lot of air. Air is always our enemy whenever we're creating any type of emulsions. The ability to have that air flow through and kind of not being trapped in there is very important for the final texture. So the less air bubbles when we're creating an emulsion, the better, always. This is a food grade spray gun. This allows us to create and pulverize different textures, mostly for chocolate. Whenever we spray chocolate, a lot of times we're looking for a velvety effect. We're able to mix a mixture of cocoa butter and chocolate, and at a certain temperature, spray it onto a very cold surface. And as those tiny little droplets hit frozen surface, they set because of the cocoa butter in here. And I can choose exactly how much of that chocolate I want to put on there. This is our egg wash spray gun. Our egg wash that we use is a mixture of egg yolks and water. And what that does is basically creates a really nice, fine kind of shine and a nice burnished color, but at the same time preserving those layers and making sure that they're still crispy. So we'll pump this, create enough pressure in there, and then be able to press this button and to direct how much egg wash we're actually putting. And it saves a lot of time because traditionally egg washing used to be a brush action. You want the minimum amount of pressure onto them. So that's why this egg wash bottle is very gentle on the actual pastry. This is our pastry brush. We use this mostly for syruping our babka. Its bristles are very dense. When we're dunking this into the syrup and then brushing our babkas, it's important that every single bristle in there gets drenched in that syrup. And then that allows us to get a very even and thick coating of the syrup. So that creates a very good texture in terms of whatever it is that we're brushing onto. And this is our Bongard oven. This oven is a convection oven that allows us, first of all, to rotate the entire rack, creating a very even bake throughout. So a convection oven allows the air to flow throughout. A convection actually allows that air to circulate, and hot air to circulate, maintains its heat very, very well, and creates a very strong bake in the beginning. We can even set it to have programs so that it knows automatically to start at a certain temperature and then slowly go to a different temperature over a certain amount of time. We have an ability to open the vent. The vent is to release the steam that's being built up in this oven. This is steam. This is actually the opposite of what we're trying to do with the vent, is to inject more steam in there to create even more pressure and to delay the formation of a crust. This is the spiral mixer. There's a dough hook here that actually looks like a spiral. What the spiral actually does is it very, very gently mixes the dough and kneads it as if a hand was mixing it as well. What's nice about this also is that it has this grate over here right above, which basically allows us to throw stuff in as the mix goes. Normally what you'd have to do is stop the mix, throw in butter, but in this case we can just continue to go. This can hold up to 120 kilos of dough, which is quite heavy. And then throughout the day we usually mix close to a few tons of dough all in this mixer. I'm in the pastry department, but we also have a massive bread department led by Darwin Castillo, and he's gonna show you the rest.
This is the rounder. This is used to make different types of rolls, like sweet rolls, challah rolls, and you can make 100 times more than what you could make by hand. This is the plate we use for the rounder. You take the plate, you place your dough on it, you put it inside, you press it down, cut it, and then round it. For the baking process, it is very important to have the buns the same size. If you have all of your doughs symmetric, it is easier for you to bake them. I love this machine. This does my job a lot easier. This is called a divider. See, it divides the dough. This machine is great because you can divide even pieces. You place your dough in there, take it down, you make the dough nice and even, and we have a few functions here. You save a lot of time. It's the same as if you were dividing each unit by hand. This is called the molder. It molds the dough. So this molder is used to do our baguettes. This helps you to shape each piece into an even size, and it shapes it into any length you want. This is for the thickness of the dough, and this is for the length of the dough. We shape between 300 and 500 baguettes a day. You used all this equipment, but still you finish up everything by hand. The machine will not give you the final item. This is called the proofing basket. It helps your dough build into the shape you want. There is a linen around here. This is to avoid the dough from getting too moist. It forms like a dry crust, so it's easier for you to score it. What I mostly use these baskets for is for the high hydration doughs, which is the sourdough. What you want to see once you place your dough in there, you want to be able to see the dough rising. This linen here helps activate all the yeast or sourdough, whatever you're using. This is the step before going into the proofer. This is called the proofer. It proofs the dough. Open this. These are croissants. We have pan of chocolate, and we have regular croissants. We have some cinnamon rolls down there. The cool thing about it is that you can leave your items in there without worrying they will proof slowly or too fast. This is retiring overnight. The program normally goes on around midnight, so it goes from cool to proof, and there is like a run time. From 12 to 1, it goes from 36 degrees to 50 degrees. From 1 to 2, it goes from 50 degrees to 65 degrees. It will all depend on what temperature you want at the end of the program. Here we have the deck oven. We have 5 different floors. You can fit up to 50 loaves per deck. This is used to bake most of the bread department items. Depending on the type of bread you're baking, that's how you're gonna use your temperature. For baguettes, we use a very high temperature, so it will range from 500 degrees to 550 degrees. You can set the temperature for the stone and also the temperature for the top. The stone of this oven is very important. It heats up at a certain temperature that it gives a pump to the dough. So if you don't have that pump, the bread will not rise and open as nice. Most of the items get steam. Steam is very important for the doughs to rise. In order to get a nice color and volume, you need both stone and steam. Once your breads are at 80% baked, you will need to open your vent. The vent is to dry the doughs, so you get that nice crust. This is so heavy, it weighs tons of pounds. In order to have this in, we had to reinforce the floor, otherwise it couldn't hold it. This is called the loader. This is part of the deck oven. So the loader is used to fill the oven quicker than if you would do it with a board. So this is called the oven peel. As you can see, this is 3 times smaller than the loader. In order to fill an oven, you will have to use this 6 times to fill two decks. Once you have all the doughs in the belt, you put it in, these hangers here, then you can go with as much speed as you want. This is called the wood board. This is used for one item specifically, which is baguette. It holds the dough for you from the couche, from the tray. If you wouldn't have this tool, it would tend to degas, and you don't want to degas the dough before it goes into the oven. You need the board not to be the same size of the baguette, but a little bigger. So this is called the blade. The only part you use to score bread is the corner of it. You take it and you score. That cut there will allow the gas from the dough to escape, and that's how you get that rise too. And you score from tip to tip. Our baguettes are pretty peculiar, I would say, because personally I like my baguettes to be tapered, so you get that nice smokiness at the end. This is the fork mixer. What this does is basically kneads the dough. We have the fork here. It slowly starts rotating little by little, then picks up the dough. This is basically used for baguette dough and French sourdough, since it needs to be mixed at slow motion. The reason of the shape of the fork is to prevent from ripping the dough. We mix between 500 and 800 loaves every day. Once you start developing the gluten, it goes to second speed. Then it goes a little faster, and that's you can see when the dough is ready.
So at home, you don't need all this fancy equipment. But here at Bread's Bakery, we make thousands of items every single day. And all these tools allow us to fulfill our passion.
All right, cut. That was great.